was born in York Run, Pennsylvania, 1921. No. 4 sisters and 3 brothers. I had more than that. Let's see. I know I had 4 brothers and 6 sisters counting me. Emma, Margaret, Wilhelmina, Irene, and then I came along. The boys were Eli, Albert, Charles, and George. Well, they were always around. We was a very close family. They all had their things to do, and Eli and I used to spend most of our time picking up coal, so my parents would have enough for the winter. Eli and Wilhelmina. I had a sister named after my mother and a brother named after my father. They were very strict. Yes. Yes. My dad, not so much. My dad left everything up to my mother. My grandmother and grandfather lived in the back alleys, way back of us. And he was getting up to go to work this day, and there was snow about 4 or 5 feet deep. And he got down almost, I'd say maybe 1/4 of a way to the mine, and he came back. And my grandmother says, "You're not going to work today?" He says, "I can't get through." She says, "You can get through." "What do you mean you can't get through?" He says, "Well, I go to one side of the road and the thing goes to the right too. I go to the left and the thing goes to the left. It would not let me go past." She said, she said, "Well, don't go today." She said, "That's a bad sign." So no sooner than they both sat down to the table, they heard the whistles blowing. There was an explosion in the mine.
So he came out okay? He didn't go that day.
The only time he did go.
It's okay.
He was cut.
And he had 2 horses that he took care of in the mine. And he loved those horses. Me and my mother were sitting in the kitchen, and our sink was here, and clear over to the side of our house was real big. It was 8 rooms. And the sugar bowl sat on the You remember, I don't think you all know the old-fashioned stoves when it had a, oh, you do? The lid was down and the sugar bowl was on the sink side of the house, kitchen. And it picked itself up and went from the sink to the top of the stove. The closet was down, and it landed there and never spilled a drop. We had a dog all the time, and my mother raised her own chickens. We used to sit on the curb and take license plates, and if a number or your initials were on it, you got hit. We lived in a house, 8 rooms, very large.
So,
and I hear that they just tore it down. It was torn down just a couple weeks ago.
he's up in
And
operation.
we had 2 sets of stairs in the house. You could run up one and go down the other one.
That's fine.
If you went up in one, you went from the sitting room. We called it a sitting room. It was like today like an extra, place where they sit and gab and whatnot. And if you ended up, you just went across the top of the stairs, and you'd go down and you'd land in the living room. We had a beautiful living room and dining room, which we were not allowed in. Because they said that's for company only. I remember we were, me and my sister Irene used to share a bed, and we were just talking to each other, and we heard my mother yelling. And here we looked down the road, and there was a big black man gonna hit my mother or something, or whatever, I don't know. And I yelled for my brother, and he got on the window. He said, if you don't get the H-E-L-L out of here, he says, I'm gonna kill you right now. And he got up and ran away. I had a favorite all the time. I was straight A's. If I came home with a B, my mother would want to know why I had a B. I liked school because there was a lot of friends there, and school was school. When you went to school, you went to school. It was so different than it is today. When I came to high school, I'll never forget the first day. The teacher there used to be my homeroom teacher, grade school. And she came in to see how I was doing. And she asked the principal, Mr. Ambrose, I'll never forget his name. She said, Mr. Ambrose, how is Pauline doing? He says, if everybody was as good at anything as she is, I wouldn't have to be here. My friends, my next door neighbor was one of them. They owned a small fort in their house, like just a small amount of stuff they would sell. And all my best friends were, in fact, I took one friend with me to my sister Wilhelmina's home for the summer. She came from a large family and they were very wealthy. And we both stayed there, and my sister took us out on the water, and I don't know what, I can't remember the name of the water, what it was. It was a small, not a small boat, or not in a small place. It was a huge water. I remember going out and I got sunburned so bad. And when we went home, I was crying and crying because it was burning. And I said, you better not call Mom and tell Mom that you had me out on a boat. She said, because you'll be in for it. I never thought about that. I don't know. Anything I wanted to do, I would do because I was well in school. I remember World War II. Everybody was always trying to find out more information, one way or the other. And everybody had men in service that were well, you know, that they thought of. In fact, there was 2 brothers that was killed in World War, in the world. I remember very well. They were very good friends of ours, of our whole family. And both were killed in World War. And when we heard that, that took a lot out of us. My mother made all my clothes. You didn't go to the store like you do today. Nobody did. Everybody made their own. There was a nightclub right across the street from where we lived, and I met him in there. And I used to dance with him and would go as far as Pittsburgh to dance. And Pittsburgh was 50-some miles away from our place. Foxtrot. Oh, that I don't know. You just come up and you'd start dancing, that's all. Did I go to college? No, of course not. Nobody went to college. Nobody could afford it. My first job here, my first job was here in Michigan. I worked at a big store. Used to be J.L. Hudson's. Y'all remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I worked for them for 23 years.
What did you do?
And I decorated cakes. I would decorate 9 wedding cakes in one day, in 8 hours. And that was a job. And J.L. Hudson Jr. came up 2 or 3 times and pinned a rose on me for doing that. And oh, I forgot to tell you, I had a cake that they pulled down Woodward Avenue today when them, well, you all wouldn't know, when them 3 buildings were put up downtown. Well, the cake was supposed to determine what that was. And they put this cake on a long trailer and had horses pulling down Main Street. You just took for granted you were going to get married, that's all. There was no wedding. Didn't have a wedding. Just at home, my own immediate family and his, that's all. Oh, let me see. Canapa. Father Canapa. Mm-hmm. 5. The first passed away. It only lived 10 days. And if it was born today, it would be still living, but it was a 8-month baby that they say, I guess all you women know what that is. Today an 8-month baby will live, but then it didn't. It only lived 10 days and I didn't know it. I never knew that the baby died until I came home that day. I was in a hospital then at 2 months. And when I came home, I thought, gee, it's funny they're not showing me the baby. And so finally my neighbor, Luby, that's Luby, Luby came over and she says to somebody in the family, does she know it? And then I knew, I thought, uh-oh, there's some troubles here somewhere. I gotta find out what it is. I says to my mother, where is the baby? She says, sit down. My mother was very commanding. So I sat down, she says, and I don't want no crying from you either. She said, the baby passed away. It only lived 10 days. And she says it was baptized. And she says, Irene and her husband stood up for the baby. Paulette, Judy, Jerome, and Leo. They were all good kids. They paid very good attention, and they did what I told them to do. I never had any trouble at all with any of my kids. Oh, I had a lot of favorite books. I used to read anything I could get my hands on. Yeah, I used to walk 3 miles to see a movie and walk back 3 miles. Nobody had automobiles. Nobody. You walked to church, you did everything with your legs. Nobody gave you anything. my husband's side of the family, his father was a mean guy. I didn't like him.
He was.
He was too mean with his wife. He was from the old country, you know, and he was a boss. And I couldn't stand him. A lot of times we'd be eating dinner in the evening, and his wife, my mother-in-law, would try to explain to them because she had 2 sons at that time in service. And he'd say, "Why don't you shut up? And nobody wants to hear you talk." So this one time I thought, I'm going to stop this. So I spoke up. I says, exactly what she's saying I heard, and she's right. I never heard a thing. But I just wanted to shut him up because I couldn't stand him, really. He was too mean. Dan, how could I forget it? He came over on a boat, how was it did they come on? I guess on a boat. Because he said he came to United States on a boat by working his way over on the ship. That's how he got here. And my grandmother, she never talked about her relatives or anything else. I don't know. I didn't even know if they were living, and that I don't know. About growing old. Not too many. You just got to take each year at a time. I love my grandkids. Gosh, too much. I have 2 great-great-grandchildren. One is going to be 4 next month, and the other one was I guess 1 year old now.
Mom, you have a lot in
Yeah.
Utah too.
Utah.
Owen is so smart. He'll call up and he'll say, "Hi, Grandma Oli." He calls me Grandma Oli. Just be at home, that's all. Just be a homebody. I don't know, they know more about me than I know myself. My grandkids really love me. I know they do. Because I love them.